Over here at Skywalker Sound, I work with Ben Burtt, who's the other supervising sound editor on Star Wars. He was the godfather of the Star Wars sound. He worked on the original 3, and then we got him up to speed on digital, and he did Phantom Menace as well as Episode 2. So part of my duties are to just basically work with the director and work with Ben to put together the soundtrack of the film, and that covers all the different elements of the dialogue, the sound effects, the Foley recording, all the re-recording of the dialogue called ADR, and then get all those elements together and get them prepared for our mix, where we put all those elements together and it mixes into the final soundtrack of what you hear in the theater. Then George was developing a product called Sound Droid, which was the first sort of non-linear sound editor that was going to be made for the computer, and that was Macintosh based. And it ran on top of the New England Digital hardware, the people that make Synclaviers and Post Pros, and so it was a Macintosh based editor for that, and they needed a tester, and so they just called the games division and said, give us your best QA guy. And so the guy nominated me, so I came over here and started working on that on the development team for a few years. And that eventually shows like Young Indiana Jones Chronicles and this other Robert Redford film called Quiz Show ended up using that technology. And so I ended up working on project-based films after that. And it sort of started the digital sort of revolution here at Skywalker, you know, because those were some of the first films that were done on digital. And then that blossomed into using Pro Tools. And we had an all Pro Tools show on Phantom Menace. We did that every element of the film on Pro Tools. That was the first film done here at Skywalker that was all Pro Tools. Before that, we also used another product called Studio Frame. Working with traditional editors who have cut on magnetic-based film and having teaching them the tools of the digital trade, and at the same time learning their trade on how you do editing. So it was a nice trade-off. It was a great environment for that, like learning from the masters of sound editing and then being able to teach them something I felt valuable too. So it was a great dynamic to have, and that's like with Ben, it's been fantastic like that. Some of the sound effects, I used to come through here and listen to just some of his sounds when he wasn't in the room, because I was just so amazed by some of the stuff that he'd created over the years, and like, you know, the lightsabers and TIE fighters and X-Wings and all that stuff. So that's, you know, basically where they start up. Right now, this is a composite mix, so it's down to a 5.1 sort of environment there. But that easily was at least 100 tracks when it started in the first units. Yeah, I mean, when you have a a film that's got a lot of visual effects, I mean, you're starting with nothing. I mean, there's no production sound on this Tatooine pod race. It would be a sound of computers whirring, I guess, if there was production sound. And like the characters, the pod race announcers, those were both recorded after the fact. Anakin's lines were probably re-recorded there because of just the sound that went. Like this was probably shot on, that was probably shot in Tunisia here, but we had to re-record him because of just probably wind noise or whatever was going on the set. And just also to make it cut through everything, because there's so much sound going on, you have to sort of re-record it with more projection. So yeah, you got to go through the whole thing, and that's the first step of the designer goes through and spots the whole film. So you go through and see, like, okay, there's this kind of engine, there's this kind of engine, there's this, there's a background ambience going on, there's a shot of a crowd, there's the shot of the little power couplings hitting, connecting to the side of the pod, there's his hands on here, there's the gears, the little switches that he's clicking, and that's Foley. So that's re-recorded here. That's another thing. It's almost like looping. It's like you have to go through and watch the film and re-record anything that's too specific to be in a sound library. Anakin's pod was based on some recordings. I mean, it's multiple things, but some recordings were done at this racetrack up in, I wish I could remember the name. It was called Willow Racetrack, or it's in a town called Willow. It's up in Northern California. I went up there. There was this like racetrack where you could just, all you had to do is put a number on the side of your car, sign a release, and they let you drive on this track at like full bore. I mean, so there was all these kind of weird cars out there and like custom jobs, and there was this racing truck that was really interesting, and there was this a bunch of these Porsches that were really tricked out, really funny. And I don't know if it was like the muffler or what, or if it was like the reverberation off the side of the hills as they were driving, but a lot of those elements from that series of recordings that I did ended up for Anakin's pod, because they had this high kind of phasey quality that really matched well with Sebulba's low-end throaty kind of thing. And Sebulba was sourced from, a lot of his low-end guttural stuff was sourced from this cigarette boat that I recorded in the SF Bay. There's an alien race in episode 2 called the Geonosian. My wife was with me. Yeah, my wife was with me on that recording. Yeah, those were flying foxes, fruit bats. Oh, and penguins. Yeah, I went to Melbourne when I was down there, and there was this Phillip Island, this place in the southeast tip of Australia, and there was this island where all these penguins, Arctic penguins or Antarctic penguins, I'm not sure which pole they would have been coming from, South Pole. Antarctic? Yeah, South Pole penguins would come up and they would nest every night in this place in Australia, and so I was able to go down there, and the Park Service let me out there, and so I was able to record them coming in and making all their chirping calls, and that along with the, here I'll play you some of that, along penguins. So some of that with that fox, the flying fox growl ended up to be a core element of Geonosian. So you'll hear that in the film. Yeah, that was actually, I just gave them to Ben, and he was able to make them work. And it's good sort of to work that way, because you can get kind of emotionally attached to a sound recording that you've done, and so like you're like, oh, you got to feature this part, or that part sounds terrible. So I give Ben the whole thing, and he'll pick out what he thinks is good, which is usually a really good thing that he picks out. So, and it's something maybe I wouldn't have even thought to pick, and he'll use it in a unique way that'll sound like, like I can show, maybe I can find a processed sound effect that he's done. These are some of the squawks and chirps, and he's pitched them there. And he's taken like 3 or 4 or 5 of them and layered them and pitched them in a way that this was some of the background ambience. So we're going to go into a mix room now. We're doing a Catalan version of the Foreign right now of episode 2. So you can see sort of where the mixer works and how they take all the elements and they mix it down to a 6-channel stem that gets controlled in the central machine room. We have our editors on 2 Pro Tools. Actually, there's just 1 Pro Tools in here right now. And then we have all the pre-dubs are hung on MMRs.
No malinterpretis. L'Obi-Wan és un gran preceptor.
So right here we have
tan savi com el
our
mestre
Pro Tools that's holding
i tan fort com el mestre
the editor's cut tracks, and it's spread out by character for the Catalan.
Estic molt agraït de poder ser el seu deixeble.
And the fuse cards playing the video as well as some standard definition playback from the Do Re Mi video. Our mixer Laura Hirschberg and our editor Steve Flynn.
No em malinterpretis. L'Obi-Wan és un gran preceptor.
I'm gonna get the console.
Tan savi com el mestre Yoda i tan fort com el mestre Windu.